What I think is totally cool is that you're an exec. Like, you rarely see this, an exec that's actually hosting a show and branching out into that and like really doing a lot of outreach for the brand.
Right. Well, I love our brand. And, I was emailing my boss 3 years ago some kind of gossipy nonsense from the set of a show. And she was like, you have to do a blog. And so, like a couple months later, I started Andy's blog. And it really began as a way for programming to interact with our viewers. And it was really a way of like people commenting under my blog, like, you suck, or Santino, why is he still on Project Runway, or this or that. And so that was a way for me to listen to them and say, look, man, I called Nina Garcia yesterday and she stands by her decision. So you need to understand that this is what went down. And so it's really a way for us to interact. Since then, we've got, hundreds of bloggers that are each uniquely involved in each of our shows. And I still blog every day. And, we want to know what our viewers think and what they have to say. And that's why we're here. And that's why we just use BravoTV.com like crazy. And they do too.
These gays, they're trying to murder me.
What do I think of her?
Yes?
I don't think of her.
Read about that in the New York fucking Post.
We are coming at you live from the Bravo Clubhouse. My name is Andy Cohen, and I'm joined by very special guests that are so hotly anticipated here in the studio. I've got gay icon favorites Jennifer Coolidge and Troye Sivan. Woo! Hey, Troye. I heard that you're a fucking faggot. What do you think about that? Isn't that crazy? You're gay. Oh, Troye, I really love your new album. I just love dancing with all my gays in the club. They introduced me to this thing called poppers. It's really fun. Oi, matey. Oi, matey. Oi, matey. That's a really interesting word. It's almost like you can't speak in an Australian accent. Let's cut over to our show's producers. Local Gossip, Joan Summers. Hello, everybody. My name is Local Gossip Joan Summers. Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you. Wow, to be introduced by Andy Cohen, it's so crazy. And our extra special guest producer for the day. Guest.
Okay.
He calls himself a local artisan. Whatever that means, it's Matthew Lawson.
Hi, welcome. I'm so happy to be here.
He's also a faggot.
That's right, Andy. Just like you.
Joan, I love your tits. Thanks, Jennifer.
I feel like I'm in the psych ward here.
Oh, God. Hello, everybody. You're listening to Eating for Free, the podcast recording live from the absolute edge of the Watch What Happens studio. It's live from New York. Welcome.
Wow.
I've really never been happier to be anywhere else in my entire life. To be honest, I do genuinely mean that. Matthew, how's your day today after Andy Cohen just called you a faggot?
And he would. I just finished Real Housewives of Miami season 3. And
how's that making you feel?
Started season 4. And I've also, as I've been texting you nonstop, been watching Southern Hospitality for the first time. And I have to say, I have hope again. I have hope for this network. I have hope for reality TV. I feel like, all things considered, Vanderpump Rules really a flop
I'm
compared.
telling you. I'm
I'm like,
you.
move over, losers. Bring
Those
Grace Lily to the stage.
The cast on Southern Hospitality has stepped its pussy up. Okay, let me tell you. My roommate and I talk about this once a day, how Grace Lily is like legitimately
Maybe the most important person in the world.
I think she was put on this earth to literally be Jesus Christ. I think that she is
Save me, Grace Lily,
more
save me.
important than the Messiah. Okay, like literally. Like, you know how Christians are always like, you know, you have to look for like, what is it? The mark of the beast. Like the mark of the beast is the like I am Gia dresses that we have seen on this week's Vanderpump Rules. And they are spreading quickly, right? Like, actually, the mark of the beast
is the what a peach astroturf pop-up.
Yeah,
we
no,
saw
the
in
mark of the
Vanderpump Rules.
no. The mark of the beast is what you have to get stamped on your wrist when you go into the Vial Files studio. And I think that Grace Lily is here from, you know, Jesus's resurrection. She is Jesus resurrected. She's here to like really save the sinners during the end times that we're living through right now. There's a scene in the most recent season of Southern Hospitality, and I'm not going to give too much away, but she says like to the effect, like, let me see if I can do my Grace Lily voice, where she's like,
Oh, I haven't heard this yet.
she's like, oh God, how does she talk? She's like,
She's
like,
so
wavy baby,
Yeah.
wavy
That's it.
baby.
You got it. You
I'm
got it.
zen. I got a pimple on my third eye. Like literally, like no. She's like,
I didn't want to work on my birthday because I was gonna get lit, but you do what you gotta do for love.
wavy baby.
I'm all here for
No.
the good vibes. That's all.
She's like talking about breaking up with her boyfriend who's controlling, and she's like, I went in there and I fucked him real good to sleep, and then I stole my cat and my vegan chicken nuggets, and I got the hell out of there. I was
She's
like,
literally the Queen, the Mother, the Mary Magdalene.
she gets into the car. No, literally, she fucks this man to sleep, and then gets
Legend.
in the car, like escapes from underneath him, literally Coyote Ugly style, raids the freezer for an open half-eaten box of vegan chicken nuggets,
Work.
and steals the cat and then runs to her car barefoot. I was like, you are the second coming
Guys,
of Christ.
I'm not joking. If you are even remotely interested in the concept of Vanderpump Rules, let alone someone who's been a fan like we have for many years, nearly a decade at this point, you need to get on Southern Hospitality. I'm so sorry, Joan, personally, for not listening to you earlier. You should have put a gun to my head. You should have set a drone to take me out for not watching it.
I've been just like stealing content from my roommate because I live with one of the coolest people ever. And they recently took a job at a cafe and came home today and was like, I almost posted an Instagram story from this cafe where there was a 3-bay sink in the background, and I almost captioned it 5150. And that's like how I feel watching Southern Hospitality, where like woke up, went to my cafe job with a 3-bay sink, and then the torture started. Like literally we just keep tweeting and texting each other, and then the torture started. That's how I feel watching Southern Hospitality this season, where I'm like, these people are living in a perpetual like karmic cycle of, and then the torture started. Like
It's a perpetual motion machine of
got
chaos
my
and
dick
confusion.
literally word for word. Maddie, you like literally told everyone last year that I got my dick sucked behind a dumpster. Like literally word for word. That is a direct quote from Southern Hospitality. It's like, got my dick sucked behind a dumpster, and then the torture started. Showed up late for my bar gig, and then the torture started. Misspelled the bottle service sign, and then the torture started.
I'm obsessed with the bottle service of it all. Oh my god.
Wait, and also,
I didn't know this world like I thought I did, and now I'm like, I need to know.
What do you feel about my husband? Like actually, who do you think is my husband on this show?
The one
do you
who
think
looks
is
like
my-
a sim. What's his name?
Joey Bottles, excuse you.
Joe Bradley.
Joe Bradley, who
Joe Bradley.
definitely fucked Luann on Watch What Happens Live.
Oh, I could see it. Yes.
His nickname is Joey Bottles. He's Italian.
He's so
literally
hot, but he looks like a sim. I'm sorry.
Every time he's on
talks like
screen,
one.
every time he's on screen, he is like legitimately, I say this with all love, the stupidest person that has ever been on TV.
In an endearing way. Like it's very funny.
You
I
guys
won't
know
lie.
when you watch Vanderpump Rules and you're like, the intelligence in this room is like one brain cell that they just take out and share amongst each other. Like he's what happens when the brain cell didn't get put back in the refrigerator overnight. Like like when you don't put your contacts in the solution, like he's what happens when you don't properly store the
falling
brain
apart.
cell that you share amongst like 14 people. Like
He's trying really hard though.
his
He's
brain
trying
has
really
been
hard.
his brain has been cooked by self tanner and hair gel, and I'm obsessed with him.
Not Leva, but
I-
who's the boss, the sober DJ? I'm also obsessed with her. I'm forgetting her name right now. Though.
Oh, Maddie Reese,
Maddie,
DJ
yeah.
Maddie Reese.
When
DJ
there is
Maddie
Joe is
Reese.
yearning from episode 1 for her, and she is already back with her old fling. I was like, this is a tale to
Who
time.
is, by
this
the
is
way,
Shakespearean. This is
her
like a
old-
Greek tragedy.
Her old fling, who, let it not be forgotten, is a pedicab driver.
Bike taxi. Who like circles the block around the bars.
And by the way, Maddie is like beautiful, right? Like she is like very conventionally
she's
attractive.
gorgeous,
like,
yeah.
And I say this respectfully, like she's like yachting in Dubai kind of attractive.
Yeah.
And he looks like literally
guy.
he's like one of the thumb people from Spy Kids, right? And every time he cheats on her, I'm like, Maddie, you're letting one of the thumb people from Spy Kids cheat on you. Like, you're getting back together with a bike taxi driver.
But why it's so
Like,
good is because they're real friends, and whenever she has to tell them that she's going to see this man, she has the face of someone being guilty, and they all like give her that look of like, girl,
Yes,
like,
no,
girl.
Matt. This season they take a classic Vanderpump Rules trip to Miami. They
thank
literally go to Miami. Last season they went to like
Isn't that like
this-
a 1 hour flight for them? At
Last
this point?
season they like went to the swamp. I'm not joking. They literally their cast trip was like a swamp.
Oh, I can't wait. Actually,
And I can't stop saying this enough, but like Southern Hospitality is a spinoff of Southern Charm. It's like the bar owner from Southern Charm, Leva, who is like a more recent addition to the core cast, but has been over all of Southern Charm because Republic is where Southern Charm, like a lot of the drama on Southern Charm takes place. And then her other place, Bourbon and Bubbles,
Bitch,
which is
listen.
like, don't even get me started.
the
But-
Etsy font like pops to mind immediately.
But
Bourbon
Leva
plus bubbles.
is on Southern Charm, and then she got her own show called Southern Hospitality because she wants to be sort of like the Lisa Vanderpump.
Oh.
But she has no charisma, so it's like if Lisa
I
Vanderpump
kinda
had no
love it,
charisma.
actually.
No, it's like if Lisa Vanderpump was like a dry millennial instead. It's very odd energy.
Yeah, because she's
but-
only like 10 years older than her.
Yes. And it's just like literally they're all like the bottle service people and the bar people and the
VIPs,
front
VIP
door
booth
VIPs.
fillers.
Yeah. And they treat Republic like it is the most
Mecca.
exclusive club on the Eastern Seaboard. They're like, Republic is truly like
You would think
party
billionaires
Mecca.
stop
No,
here.
no. And then in every episode, Grace Lily's outside and she's like, come on, who wants to be a VIP? Come on in. We're taking VIPs. You look like you want to be a VIP, sir. You want to come
Oh,
inside
how-
our bar, be a VIP?
Oh,
Like,
watching them go
I
to
was
like couples. You guys are gorgeous young girls. We have a booth.
And I'm
You want
not,
a
by the
booth?
way,
Want a
I like,
table?
I really am. I do not want to make it sound like we're like making fun of the South in any way, but it is just
No, I
so
love it.
funny that the premise of it is it's as if Lisa Vanderpump tried to claim that like Sir was Nobu. Like that is
really the jump.
like, okay, wait. If Sir was in like San Bernardino and Lisa Vanderpump is like, this is literally Nobu, like we would laugh at it. And on that show,
Charleston's
they
a
treat
little
it-
more elevated than San Bernardino. I have to
No,
give them
Matt.
credit.
I mean, maybe, but I will say
There's more
I have
natural
looked,
beauty. Well, better
look,
architecture.
Matthew, Love and Light,
The weather I cannot
Charleston
handle.
population.
I would die.
It's There is
100
literally
something thousand, right?
150,000
Yeah,
people
no, it's
in
tiny.
Charleston.
It's tiny.
No, Matt, their downtown is like one block. Like it's literally like a single block.
That's why I'd prefer it. San Bernardino is like hell to me
like,
compared.
have you seen where it is? Like literally every time they show it, it's like one block of like land and then a swamp. Like I love it. I
Well,
love
that's why
it.
I could
I'm
never.
obsessed.
The
And
humidity.
everywhere they eat is like just pure
They are always at a swamp.
trash.
Or like on a prairie.
I love it. It is my favorite show on Bravo right now. Every week.
No, I'm obsessed.
It is like
I like
I
need
actually
bottle service now.
I watch it before I watch Vanderpump Rules. Like I
Okay,
mean,
so-
I look forward to it more than Vanderpump Rules.
I did a galaxy brain moment. I watched season 1, episode 1 of Vanderpump Rules, preparing for this series a bit, even though we don't really get into it this episode per se. And then I immediately watched season 1, episode 1 of Southern Hospitality, and I literally just went, wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
what it's like when
Wow.
people aren't yet infected by the Files virus, by the mark of the beast.
I mean, the first 2 seasons of Vanderpump, the first 5 or 6, are literally preserved in amber gold. Like that first episode in hindsight is pretty fantastic
a
of Vanderpump.
cheeky little, what does she
Minx.
call her?
Cheeky little minx.
No, she calls her something cheeky little minx. It was truly
Or I am the devil, and don't you forget
Wait,
it.
she says
It's a pretty iconic look.
a jacked up, overzealous, cheeky little minx. That is Grace Lilly. Like I want Grace Lilly and Lisa Vanderpump to be in a room together.
Grace
okay,
Lilly
but
should be on every scene in every television show. At this point, I
We're
need her in a
getting-
room constantly.
ahead of ourselves.
Yes.
Last week, we introduced you guys to Lisa Vanderpump and some other players in that universe. I also want to say that an earlier version of last week's episode, we edited it to be fixed. I mixed up my notes. I accidentally called Roxy Music a Japanese band when I was trying to explain that they were being covered by a Japanese magazine. But I was just having a moment where we were trying to like get through that article and there was like a lot of just extraneous information. And I was talking really fast and I just mixed up the fact that Roxy Music is definitely not a Japanese band, but on the magazine that was covering Roxy Music was connecting Roxy Music to the store, the Roxy, and had traveled there to profile them. But listeners pointed out like, wait, Joan, Roxy Music is not a Japanese band. And I was like, apologies. If you caught that version, definitely I am well aware that it is not a band. We also got some stuff that is like a little bit, a lot of listeners also jumped on to say that like Ken Dodd has like really bad reputation in Soho.
That was
which
very
makes sense.
interesting.
And we also got some information that like something that's like really interesting to note about what they did in Britain. And this sort of corroborated like what we thought, but because a lot of it was about like British nightlife, of which like was just like a bridge too far for me personally to like get into in those notes. And I didn't really want to like try and like condense a very storied history into like an episode in which we might not really do it justice. But I had sort of had this feeling. And we actually talked about this with West Hollywood, but what Lisa kind of did in Soho and like what we were told by some people in London was that like very similarly to West Hollywood, Lisa and Ken would sort of like nightlife gentrify various like spaces.
It definitely
like,
was giving Flipper energy. Like they come in, make it all like glamorous and fancy and like zeitgeisty, but then
like-
kind of like dip. Pretty
sort
quick.
of like the fact that like touristy trap sort of like places that are like gimmicky gentrifier
a little
bars.
Disney-ified kind of moment.
Yeah, that like Disneyification touch, the like destination bar where like it's not really well integrated into the scene. It's sort of like a sore thumb in the places that they build. That was sort of like what the impression we had of them in London was. But because, you know, we've never been to Shadow Lounge or a lot of their bars like don't exist anymore or were like really
getting
popular.
first-hand accounts are not easy from
Pre-internet, it just was like a little much, but it was interesting to hear from people in London that like a lot of our suspicions were confirmed because as we talked about in the first
It makes a lot
episode,
of
I mean,
sense.
one of the things that really drew us to this series I literally think that was almost 5 years ago. this summer was talking between us about how they had sort of created like a zoo for straight people to go to in the gayest part of America, really, if you think about West Hollywood, like as like the gayest nightlife center of like, the Western Hemisphere.
Absolutely.
Like they literally were like the Western, not the Western Hemisphere, the West Coast, like the gayest part of the West Coast, San Francisco. They had literally created like a zoo for straight people to go, like have a petting zoo for gay people. And I think that was really interesting to sort of have that corroborated. So I wanted to just like shout out those two things, but we're actually going to start right around 2006. So if you guys forgot from last week, we ended in 2005 with the opening of the revamped Sir, which we read Lisa and Ken dropped a lot of money into. And that same year, actually, Bravo announced its very first iteration of The Real Housewives called The Real Housewives of Orange County. And we talked just a little bit through a press release that they had given after ordering the show to series. This was prior to it actually filming. It was on their summer slate, and they were basically doing like what they do at the NBC upfronts now, or places like, what is it, CinemaCon, stuff like that, where they're basically just sending out a blast of like, here's what's on our slate for the spring, summer, fall, winter programming, etc. So this was prior to it really getting a name. Back then it was just called The Real Housewives. It was pre it being called The Real Housewives of Orange County. And it was going to be like a look at the gated, most exclusive community in California. So we're going to jump ahead 6 months to January 6, 2006. And we're going to talk through the actual premiere of The Real Housewives of Orange County. So I'm getting this from Reality TV World, but this was more so a press release that they had rewritten and written up and published on their website. First announced back in May without the of Orange County clause, which we talked about. That makes it sound like a parental edition of MTV's Laguna Beach, The Real Orange County, which itself was presented as a reality version of Fox's The OC.
I love it.
Bravo doesn't try and hide the fact that, like Laguna Beach, The Real Housewives was envisioned as an unscripted version of a popular primetime soap. In this case, Desperate Housewives. Quote, Bravo continues to innovate in the reality TV genre with this riveting series exploring the complicated daily lives of 5 privileged women and their families. Bravo President Lauren Zalaznick, who we are going to get into later, stated in announcing the show's premiere date. From Peyton Place to Desperate Housewives, viewers have been riveted by the fictionalized versions of such lifestyles on television. Now, here is a series that depicts real-life desperate housewives with an authentic look at their compelling day-to-day drama. Although The Real Housewives was obviously inspired by a blend of Desperate Housewives, Laguna Beach, and even The OC, the show has no connection with any of the production companies involved. Instead, and now listen here, this is really important, The Real Housewives of Orange County was, quote, created by executive producer Scott Dunlop and is produced by Kaufman Films and Dunlop Entertainment. Kevin Kaufman, Patrick Moses, and Dave Rupel, for whom the network cites older reality shows Big Brother 2, Temptation Island, and The Real World London, that he got his start on, but makes no mention of the more recent and unimpressive Bands Reunited and American Princess projects, where he actually had an executive producer role, also serve as executive producers. So this is like, I don't know, guys, like this show could be kind of trashy. Like these people are kind of trashy.
I mean, and we get well into this later. Just Zalaznick's like very upfront, desperate. They're desperate women is very interesting to me because it is actually, even though the show, funny enough, in relation to now what you see as the Housewives, is so much more wholesome and like real and like casual per se, but I think we'll get into that as well, that the production of it in the beginning was kind of an odd like ball. It was a weird thing to kind of wrangle with and set a destination.
And just to be also clear, this was really interesting to me because, like I said, a lot of these a lot of this has been sort of like lost to time, but Evolution Media, which was originally the producer that launches later on The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, they, as well as Alex Baskin, who is credited with like Vanderpump Rules, Beverly Hills, and also previously worked on Orange County, as well as Doug Ross, who is the Evolution president and founder. get sort of credited with the Real Housewives, but actually Evolution Media, I believe, stepped in season 2. I don't have an exact date.
The first season of OC is very different than each one after.
No, and you can tell like when they stepped in, they very much like changed like a lot of it. I think they stepped in either like season 2 or season 3. I might be mixing up when. There isn't really like a lot of information about it, but the company Dunlop Entertainment is the original producer. And if you go back and you watch, Dunlop Entertainment is the only like production company besides Bravo that appears at the end. And then in later seasons, you get the Evolution Media logo as well. And Evolution Media sort of takes over for Dunlop Entertainment, which is not defunct, but I now believe has moved on to other things. And Dunlop mostly
I definitely see Dunlop in the credits.
No.
Or
It is. And a lot of them, I think the early Housewives also get credited as like, they say something like, created by Scott Dunlop. The Real Housewives of Orange County still says that because he was the one that came up with the original idea. So Scott Dunlop is the actual creator of this universe, but really quickly gets phased out by Bravo and Lauren Zalaznick, who sort of like fly in. I think the vibe that I got is like more seasoned producers, because Scott Dunlop is like, I don't know how to say this otherwise. He's kind of a weird guy. And like now he's into clean energy. Like that's like his newest business venture is like alternative energies. And we have an interview about that later. But anyway, so this is the pre-Evolution Media days, and that's really important. So this is from a New York Post article that got published October 2012. We were ready to kill the show, how Bravo's Real Housewives made it to TV. And it is like a sort of oral history of the Housewives. And this is from a section in there. This is specifically talking about Scott Dunlop, which is why we have it here. So the show's original producer, Scott Dunlop, moved from LA to Orange County enclave, Coto de Caza, which is a gated community where the ROHOC takes place, in 1986. The population of 15,000, Coto is one of the largest gated communities in the country, and Dunlop was fascinated by his waspy conservative neighbors. Now, Dunlop also cites that he is not a Republican and is more like one of the LA liberals and would get side eyes a lot from his gated neighbors. Quote, the men would leave for work and the women were left to run wild on the ranch, as they called it, playing golf and hanging out and shopping. They were all such unusual humans, entertaining but also kind of annoying. He was struck by the archetypes he saw: tennis bitches, men of leisure, boomerang kids. Dunlop initially envisioned a short film, but as reality TV started to boom in the early aughts, he realized that the format might be a better bet. He thought of the seminal 1970s PBS reality show An American Family and realized, he says, quote, there are a lot of characters here who are just as compelling. In early 2005, Dunlop put together a sizzle reel to sell the show using Keogh, the Keogh family, who is Gina Keogh, and her retired MLB husband, who soon becomes her ex-husband, and her 3 kids. And a bitchy tennis wife named Kimberly Bryant. Cohen, who was in charge of production at Bravo at the time, was impressed. Quote, I watched and couldn't believe how sexy and Californian everyone seemed, how big their boobs were, and the way they spoke to their kids. I'm not sure we totally knew what it was, but I knew if it worked, it would be like a soap opera. Bravo bought the show and ordered Dunlop to cast more female characters. Quote, we started leaning into the aspect that all of the narrative would come from women, Dunlop says. Lauren Zalaznick, then an executive vice president at NBC Universal, recalls at the time Lifetime had been the #1 cable network for 15 years. Bravo wanted to appeal to women and tell their stories too, but with an entirely different sensibility. Shooting began in 2005, but the initial footage was quite disappointing and didn't ring true. Quote, the confessional interview where the ladies spoke straight to the camera weren't stylized. They weren't well lit and the women didn't look their best, says Cohen. The women weren't also going deeply into their emotions or being honest about what was happening with their friends. He was ready to shelve it and give up, but Zalaznick persisted, insisting they go back to shoot more at a cost of about $140,000. So when they originally announced the Real Housewives, yeah, exactly. It is crazy to imagine. When they go back and shoot the Real Housewives, That first press release is from when the show initially gets ordered. That sort of news gets to the press, even if the show isn't necessarily completed yet. Sometimes things get ordered or pilots are picked up, and then things can change from then until when like the official trailer drops or when like official press releases come out. So they order the show in 2005, which we just read in that former press release, and then they watch what they have and they're like, okay, like this weird sort of documentary format is what I've sort of picked up from reading these different interviews doesn't really work. Bravo and Lawrence Lasnik and Andy Cohen are like, okay, there is something here, but the way that Scott Dunlop was producing it was like more of a documentary about like the lives of American families, right? It was not at all a like ensemble cast featuring
and
confessionals
drama and gossip.
Yeah, no, that was not it at all. Like he wanted something more akin to, I think, something like
An
think
American
of like,
Family, really, I guess.
Yeah,
to
like
use his words.
he wanted something more like kind of a not 60 Minutes necessarily, but like something in that vein where it was like aiming to tell like the true life of these women.
It does kind of
right?
like a TV special almost.
It was not stylized. It was not like the branding that we associate with it now. And when Andy and Lawrence Lasnik look at it, they're like, okay, we have to shoot more. We need to glam this up a little bit. Like we need these confessionals to look good. We need these women to really pop on screen. We need some bigger personalities. And it's interesting. You can feel that tension in the first season where like Andy does like sort of a watch what happens special with them for the final episode where they're
not
like just
even though like it's like
No.
he's not there even. It's the and
No.
they're in Vicky's backyard in front of
Yes,
her pool
no,
and they're
that's
sitting
what
on
I'm
like
saying.
lawn chairs basically.
No, that's what I mean. Where Andy sort of like produces this like weird, like they're all together inside the actor's
It's
studio.
literally like
Remember,
a clip show
Bravo
where they're like,
used to-
that was crazy.
Bravo used to be like the film and TV channel. I mean, famously, one of its like more popular offerings back in the day was inside the actor's studio. So like it felt very like, yeah, like newscasty a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Where it's like those kinds of interviews where it's like the Dune 2 cast react to their favorite moments from the film, like those kinds of
Exactly,
things, right?
yeah.
It didn't feel like what we associate with it now. And in that first season, and you really having watched the first couple seasons of Orange County for this, you can also testify that those early seasons are not the Real Housewives. They are like
No.
something else entirely.
I distinctly remember when Tamara joins in 3, it started.
That's
Like,
when
she
Evolution
started-
Media sort of like really sort of solidifies
and
the format.
Some things start to happen where it's like, oh, now there's some that carries to the next season. Now there's some that people can't get over. And then by
Yes.
5, I will say this, I will like put my life on it. The fight at Water Bar in San Francisco on their like trip out, the girls' shopping trip
That
to San Francisco.
changes everything.
Because that's when Vicky has a breakdown. She has to leave. Like her daughter's there and she starts fighting with them. All of them have conflict with each other. And that like
And-
almost legitimately carries to like now. This
No, and
fight.
part of that was like Vicky being like, "This is not what we do on this show.
Yeah, she basically,
we're
like,
not gonna
almost
do
left in that
catfights."
moment.
Yeah, she was like, "Wait, Tamara, why are you making this a trashy show?"
Little do they
But
know.
it's interesting. Yeah, the first 2 seasons especially are like a documentary about families because like the women don't interact with each other. If they do, it's like in passing.
It's only because
Most
Vicky
of
and
it-
Gina live near each other. Do they even see each other
all
casually?
of the kids get confessionals. All of the
Yes.
kids are in confessionals. It's more about like there are entire scenes where it's like, oh, we're gonna take the kids to school. That's the scene.
Yep.
Like literally, or like, oh, I'm gonna like take my kids school shopping, or like, oh, I'm gonna go get a pedicure and talk about how I spend my husband's money. But like they're alone. Like it is just a documentary at that point.
And it's
right?
not glam whatsoever.
No,
like, not all, I mean, sure they have
no.
money, but this is like upper middle class suburban money. Well, it changes as we can talk about maybe the class dynamics of it all. But like they are like really living for themselves. It's not as presentational yet as it becomes later, where it's more of a
Yeah.
like show. It's like a
So-
theater.
Alex Baskin, I want to jump back to this brief little excerpt from an LA Times article. Vanderpump Rules executive producer Alex Baskin on Scandoval and what's in store for season 11. This came out in January of this year, but behind the scenes of all of this, Alex Baskin, before The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, Orange County, any of it, he started as a summer intern at MTV. And when he was just a high school senior, he went on to study law. And he famously says in multiple interviews that like, I basically like finished law school and I was like, I don't actually really want to be a lawyer. I want to work in TV. So he goes on to basically call the person who he used to intern with at MTV, who had said like, hey, if you ever want a job, give me a line, you know? And he calls him and he's like, hey, do you remember like years and years ago when I was your intern? Like, do you have any job openings? And then during his time at MTV, he had met with an executive at Evolution, Scott, and I think that person is Douglas Ross. And he basically gives Doug Ross a call again, is like, hey, remember me? And Doug is like, yeah, come back. And so Evolution, which was a production company with a long roster of reality TV programs, basically brings Baskin on, and he sort of quickly rises through the ranks of being a producer after the fact, and then sort of gloms onto Real Housewives of Orange County prior to Beverly Hills, prior to Vanderpump Rules, and that's where Scott Dunlop is in the midst of all of this, right? So I just wanted to give that sort of like brief aside on how he gets into the mix of these shows, because he's going to obviously factor in later. So this is from a Washington Post article that came out in 2019. This was their end of the year, like decade of influencers piece that they ran. And this was like a bunch of people that got these. Andy Cohen was one of them. They called him the Ringmaster. Basically, it was a piece about his time on Bravo, as well as like how he gets involved with Watch What Happens Live. So I'm going to read some quotes from this because it is really, really good. Spending most of his career behind the scenes, he was a key part of the Bravo team that transformed reality TV, both with unscripted shows like Top Chef and Project Runway that translated coastal urbanity and creative class coolness for the masses, and with the Real Housewives franchise, which presented a smeared window into the messy drama of the sort of rich and mildly famous and monetized the great American hunger for schadenfreude. We embrace the idea that real people are as interesting, if not more so, than unscripted characters, said Lauren Zalaznick, the former NBC Universal executive who brought Cohen to Bravo. Andy himself really embodies that. His own human nature is a great deal of what makes him a superstar. After graduating from Boston University with a degree in broadcast journalism, Cohen takes this internship at CBS News in New York. And this article says, quote, early on, a producer advised him that his wandering eye might keep him from an on-air career. Cohen never realized he had one. He convinced himself he didn't. And when he eventually got on air, he wrote in his book, quote, every blogger and tweeter and commenter had something to say about my wonky eyes. He worked his way up to booker and producer on The Early Show and 48 Hours. And there's a bunch of photos of him from that time as like a little baby news producer.
Oh my God.
He also starts to make friends with all of the like Manhattan glitterati. We're talking Andy Cooper, Anderson Cooper,
I'm sure he calls him
Kelly Ripa. He also was friends with Jessica Parker, Jerry O'Connell, a bunch of like just like the, as Jerry O'Connell says, highfalutin friends. He left CBS in 2000 to join a short-lived arts and culture cable channel called Trio. There he bonded with then network president Zalaznick, who then brought him from Trio to Bravo in 2004 and installed him as the vice president of programming. So already known for, quote, Queer Eye with a Straight Guy prior to Andy's rise, Bravo really took off. And this is directly from the Washington Post. I would agree with this also. They say it takes off around 2007 with, quote, a new slate of giddy, glamorous reality shows, which is, I think, true. Of them are things like Real Housewives of Atlanta, Real Housewives of Orange County, Real Housewives of New York. And in this piece, they talk about how Andy really sort of developed like a fast rapport with Lauren Zalaznick, that they were like sort of the creative energy behind the scenes at Bravo. Now, interestingly, remember, Top Chef premiered in 2005. It actually came out basically right around the same time that the Real Housewives of Orange County did. So Andy, in like very short succession, launches two of, I would say, arguably the biggest reality TV juggernauts of all time.
I don't think it's even arguable at this point with how
Top
long they've
Chef,
been going.
which
And they're
has-
still the biggest shows on TV right now.
Top Chef has completely revolutionized the food and tea, like the food and wine world. Like, I mean,
it's like
Top
the
Chef
food and wine show.
is
honestly.
Top Chef is like, and I say this as someone who like has a lot of chef friends and was like married to a chef. I mean, like it has sort of fallen off and it's like prestige these days. It's not as well known as it used to
when
be,
she
or
left
like
as well.
prestigious. Yeah,
That was
like
pretty
it has
rough.
changed a lot. But like for a long time, Top Chef was seen as like a huge honor, and winning it was a big deal. And it really completely changed the way that people interacted with food media, which prior to that, like a lot of the food media was seen as like these sort of cozy, marmy, sort of like stay
Yeah, like
at
your
home.
Martha Stewart, you're like
Marmy? Is that the word I'm looking? Smarmy. That's the word I'm looking for. Marmy. I'm like, everyone's like
Top Chef is
smarmy.
no
Yeah,
barefoot
like
Contessa.
sort of,
That's for sure.
Yeah, sort of like smarmy, like stay-at-home wife type of TV shows, right? Which is not a criticism about those kinds of people or those kinds of programs, but that was really what like the popular.
But they turned
food
it into
media
like
was.
American Idol, basically.
And Top Chef really brought a level of prestige, the amount of Michelin-starred chefs that have appeared on that show, the way that it has really elevated the place of various food critics and restaurateurs and chefs. Like, I mean, if you compare that with also the Real Housewives of Orange County and really what the Real Housewives have done, like, regardless of our feelings about Andy Cohen, one of the things that I am always just very fascinated by is he's one of those people like RuPaul where he has literally redefined culture. I mean,
Yeah.
Andy Cohen's impact on our everyday lives and the way that we talk, the way we interact with each other, the way that we watch TV, what kinds of art gets produced cannot be understated.
No,
And
I
it's-
mean, the whole concept of a reality TV show reunion really hinges off him. And just
Yeah,
like
I mean-
RuPaul, it's now at a point where it's like, at a certain point, he's going to be too old to do this or not want to do it. And someone taking that position is like a presidential role. It's like a huge, serious like leader of an industry. It's become something in its own genre at this point.
Yeah. So because of this rapport that I was talking about with Zelaznik, the Washington Post notes that, quote, they would share these snarky emails between each other about the shows, and that quickly, quote, morphed into a blog. Quote, his deep familiarity with programming got him tapped as moderator for Bravo's occasional online after shows, and later the wildly dramatic reunion episodes that marked the end of a Housewives season. So, like, that literally, his rapport with his boss is kind of being a bitchy gay guy. Literally got him a job.
Absolutely.
Because he, by the way, we're going to get into the start of Watch What Happens Live, but like prior to that ever being even like a dream in anyone's mind, Andy would host these like, and I used to watch all of them because I was obsessed with Bravo back in fucking when I was like a kid
Was it
at
middle
this point.
school? Like-
Yeah, I was in middle school and I would log on to Bravo TV on the family computer in the garage and I would watch all the like little things and I would read the blogs and I would read all the Pop Project Runway posts where it'd be like, go to bravotv.com for like more information. I was the primary user of that. And there was also this thing called like the Housewives Insiders Club or whatever, where like it was
my
like
God.
the early iteration of like what you used to be able to submit your questions to for the reunions. I was also part of that as well.
Amazing.
But yeah, no. So because of his reputation as a bitchy gay guy at work, his boss is like, I know that you're not really like a personality, like as he says, the wonky eyes that he has. I still think that maybe it'd be fun if you like hosted after shows with the stars or the contestants or whatever. And that literally morphed into the reunions, which was why, if you watch in the beginnings, those reunions weren't called reunions back then. They were like specials that would air after the season had finished, and they'd be called Watch What Happens. Literally, it would be called Watch What Happens.
And they force it to become multi-part because they literally get so much material and like
but those
dialogue.
early
on
ones
these
were all
ones.
like one part,
They're
right?
usually like 30 minutes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now they're like
very short, very
4-part,
low
hour
budget.
long.
And yeah. So it's very fascinating. And quote, it was unusual and innovative and extremely risky only in retrospect, Zelaznik says. Bravo wanted a relaxed, intimate environment for what became of Watch What Happens Live, not celebrities rattling off publicist-approved talking points. It helped that most of the early guests already knew Cohen. They were his famous friends or Bravo celebrities. So
Exactly.
this is also from a Variety article that you grabbed some notes on. Why don't you read from this?
Yeah, so this is after he got his Hollywood Star of Fame in February of 2022. He says, kind of looking back on everything, quote, "The Housewives, which will be the thing I wouldn't be here without, and I wouldn't be getting the star without, is really a bullseye of everything I love. It's soap operas, it's dramatic women, and it's reality. You can't just write it. You can never write it, and that's why I'm still the #1 fan, and I'm still totally engaged. I want to see what happens next and why everyone else does. And it's all in the casting and it's all in the women. It's great storytelling, it's great editing, but overall, these women are the stars and we are just all on the ride with them.
Yes. So in the OC register, now going back to January 10th, 2007, the OC register posts a interview with Scott Dunlop. And Matt, I am going to read for the interviewer, and I'm going to let you have the rare honor of reading for the man. And this is, again, producer gets real about the Real Housewives, January 10th, 2007. Quote, "What do you think of the reaction to the show?"
Within Coda de Casa, people seem to think it's defined what Coda de Casa life is really like. I don't think it does that. I think it's more of a soap opera than a reality show. Is Coda de Casa damaged because of this show? No, I don't think so. People should take it as entertainment, not about everyone's real lives in Coda de Casa. It was not done to reflect real life in Coda, and it doesn't. I was once asked by a reporter, how does it feel to be the catalyst for the decline of Western civilization? Oh my God. I don't think I am the catalyst for any decline, and I don't think there's any at all. I feel like someone has vacuumed all the sense of humor out of Coda de Casa. The show holds up a mirror to certain people's ways of life. It does not represent all of the life in Coda de Casa. People leap to the judgment that because that's what was shown, that's the way people are supposed to be in Coda. People moving into the community ask if that's the way they're supposed to behave. Far from it. But I do think it sparked a re-examination of people's lives in Coda de Casa.
Why is the show so popular?
Part of the reason the show is so popular is that Bravo has found their market niche in the basic cable television world and knows how to exploit it right now. Bravo knows how to program stuff that people will go online and talk about around the water cooler at work. I think the program is good for the economy. Think about it. People watch television for all the wrong reasons. Advertisers have to be able to place ads on the shows that hit their target audience. This show hits the target audience. So in reality, the show is a business model that works.
Weird guy. So Real Housewives trying to create some new realities. This is from the East Bay Times, March 3rd, 2007. And this is actually one of the reasons why Slade had such a bad, horrible reputation at Bravo. And is also one of the reasons why Gina sort of disappears because of this article. And this is from the LA Times. I'm getting it from the East Bay Times, but the original article appeared in the LA Times. And this is one of the reasons that the early cast of The Real Housewives sort of fell apart and why certain production deals went nowhere is because of this. Now, the reason that we're including this is because this is really our earliest behind the scenes look into what Bravo used to be like, because we think of Bravo now as sort of like a 360 marketing deal for its stars. You go on, Bravo takes a cut of whatever you're going to promote. Most of the time, new wives have something they want to promote. They understand that part of the game is knowing that your time on the show is short, and so you need to launch something either for a storyline or because you actually think you have a product that you're bringing to the show that'll be successful. One of the only people to really make a successful business out of Bravo, besides Bethany Frankel, is, funny enough, Kyle on Summer House created Loverboy and runs it now with Amanda.
Yes.
And so Loverboy is like huge here. I don't think it's really made its way to the West Coast the way that it has on the East Coast, but like Loverboy is everywhere. Like if you go to the deli here, there's a deli by my house where they have like giant Loverboy signs outside. Like it is an actual business. It is everywhere.
It's real.
And
you can buy something from
I have gotten into someone's car that has like old Loverboy 6-packs like in the back. Like It is like a thing that people buy. So I would say that is like probably the only other successful business and they have used Bravo to market it well. But I also think that Bravo sort of like people know the deal now, right? And they also know that like these Bravo stars have podcasts. They are giving interviews. They are getting book deals. They are going on press tours. There is the upfronts. There is BravoCon. There is Watch What Happens Live. There is like basically
Amazon
an
Live
entire
now. This is
ecosystem.
fucking
Amazon Live. There is podcast interviews. There are e-news carpets. There are premiere parties now for the seasons where the press are invited. Like it is a movie premiere.
The fact
like,
that now I'm seeing Vanderpump Rules parties at bars, I was like, oh my God, we've hit it. Like
No,
this is like Drag Race now. Like this is crazy.
like there was like a Vanderpump Rules premiere and it got a red carpet roundup in Page 6. Like that's where we're now, right?
Page 6 is on Vanderpump like
This is
anybody else now.
This is from when Andy Cohen's influence at the network was purely relegated to the Housewives, and Lauren Zalaznik's influence over what she thought these shows were supposed to be really reigned supreme, and they were sort of ran in just a way that is fundamentally opposed to how they are ran now. So listen to some of this stuff here, because this fascinated me. I was eating this shit up. So Smiley has produced De La Rosa, Joe De La Rosa, who was one of the original Housewives. She was like the young one who was dating an older man.
She was like
Toto.
26 in the beginning of that show. It was
As
crazy.
seen on the show. But behind the scenes, he has also joined her on TV talk shows, red carpets, and promotional events not allowed by Bravo. He has issues, he says in this piece, because, quote, publicists called to reprimand him. He spoke to the LA Times without a Bravo representative, which is not allowed, he says, quote, they hate the fact that we figured out how to take exposure from the show and turn it into something. We're about making personal relationships in the industry. It comes across when we meet people. We're not hungry for it. We're not pushing too hard. A spokesman for the network says, quote, Bravo does not discuss the terms of its talent contracts, which are standard for the industry. The talent contracts are all designed to protect the confidentiality of the plot development. So this LA Times writer says, while there's always a loose cannon or two, most reality cast members appear one season only and comply with the network's often strict regulations. Again, this was sort of a new thing for people, right? Like having a cast that stays the same, like literal talent season after season that aren't like judges on a panel, you know?
Well, it's like what you see
like,
now with Ariana and Tom. They're doing these podcast interviews and they're like, you'll have to see on the show. They like can't say anything. And even Tom,
because
Schwartzman after Scandoval
like,
because he started revealing too much.
Yeah, well, because also I think that part of it was like, back then, you know, the real world changed over. Sometimes the challenge would have people back. Sometimes the real world would have like guest appearances or like, you know, you would see someone somewhere, they'd pop up on another show. But like, it really was not standard to have like an ensemble cast that stayed the same season after season.
They didn't even imagine
like,
it could get
Queer
to like...
Eye. But again, like, they had people on Queer Eye that rotated out every episode. So even that was not really comparable.
And then the thing is, for those shows too, storylines are for the contestants who are on for a season at best. They were kind of planning ahead of time, but thinking now of like, this show can go on for 10 years and there's going to be like a few women who make it that far. Those are like massive plot lines to manage.
Take this all with a grain of salt because this is Slade Smiley, right? This is Slade
if you
Smiley.
guys don't know, talk
And
about
he
those
is
hated
a
man in Bravo
liar.
history.
So he has this thing where he's like, well, so we have that quote, which is like, most reality cast members appear one season only, etc. But when it comes to successful type A suburbanites with their own ideas about running things, it's a different story. Quote, nobody at Coda de Casa needs anything from Bravo TV. The other shows are competitive in nature. People are trying to make something of our lives. We're already there, which is interesting.
That was a lot of the conflict with Slade is they were like, you're trying to get into our world where we already have like wealth and stability and you are just broke and trying to attach on to us.
But also it is funny because you clearly did need Bravo for this because you're using your connections from Bravo to get on these shows.
They were right about him.
There is a tension there where that is not true anymore.
No, now it is to be a Slade Smiley. Come in and take advantage.
Yes, that is like literally how these run. So it's fascinating that like 15 years ago, this was what, or not even 15 years ago. Oh my God. 16 years ago?
Girl, it's almost 20 at this point. Like 18? 2006? 2024?
2007. 2007.
2007. Oh, okay. Yeah. So about 16, 17 years.
This is 17 years ago. That's crazy. Sorry, that's actually crazy.
It explains why so much has changed because I will say that I think both of us would agree. One of the biggest critiques we have of Bravo now are people are coming on with literally nothing interesting happening and then make up a storyline to stay on.
Like Smiley, Gina Keogh said, quote, she hoped the exposure would help her business, though she also wanted to promote an acting career for her daughter, Kara, who appeared in some movies as a child. And like Smiley, she's taken advantage of opportunities as they appear. She said she and 3 other housewives set up an online shopping center, the realocbrand.com,
LOL.
to fulfill requests for the clothes and jewelry they wear and the products they use. We asked Bravo to partner and they weren't interested, she says. They threatened to sue if we didn't remove all pictures of 2 or more of us together from the website. They didn't want us to mention Bravo in any of our ads or link with us. Smiley said the show's participants are paid and that contractually 2 or more cast members cannot appear in unsanctioned media, nor are they allowed to use Bravo's name or logo. And there's an issue of public appearances and interviews. Smiley, De La Rosa, and Keo were the only participants willing to be interviewed without permission. And then this is what is so fascinating. Vicky Gunvalson, a housewife who owns an insurance business, tells the LA Times, quote, "I'm not going to bite the hand that feeds me. We've been asked to abide by the rules. I want to do everything the correct way."
You have to laugh. You have
And
to
it's
laugh.
fascinating. I mean, this really does show sort of like this peek behind what really happened right when this show that really starts it all blows up. These people are like eager to make something of it. They're eager to like capitalize on it. They're trying to set up businesses. They're trying to go on other things. They're trying to spin that fame off into something else. Keo thinks that she's going to get like a successful like realtor business out of it. And they're all sort of struggling with the fact that Bravo at that time didn't really have an infrastructure for this sort of thing to happen. I mean, like this was brand new for the network. Like,
and yet
that
they're also not
sort of
allowing them
thing-
to do anything either.
Yeah. And we've known that this has changed a lot, but it really was fascinating to go back and read this and be like, wow,
From the very beginning, there was demand.
fuck, that's crazy that this is really what they were dealing with, like at the beginning even. So as you say here, the network started production in 2007, later that year, on Manhattan Moms, which then was retitled Real Housewives of New York City and became the second installment. And that first season aired March 4th, 2008. And as you know, the cast has become legend at that point. So at season 3, the third installment, Real Housewives of Atlanta, gets announced. So you took the notes on this. This is from South Coast Today. Matt, why don't we dive into this?
Let's do it. The Real Housewives of Orange County was the first to premiere in March 2006. Viewership has more than doubled over the 3 seasons of the show. Season 1 averaged 471,000 viewers, which is already a lot to imagine back then. Like, we're still getting those numbers now for some of these franchises.
Yeah.
The last season averaged 1.16 million viewers an episode. So that would be season 2 of OC. So the show's popularity led the cable channel to spin off New York and Atlanta. Filming is now underway for season 2 of New York, which garnered around almost 1 million, about 928,000 for
Which
an
is
episode
crazy
each season.
if you think about
It actually is.
actually what the ratings are right now. Like,
Yes.
that's what I mean when I say ratings have really fallen off, but I digress.
The debut of Real Housewives of Atlanta, which premiered last week, will overlap with the 4th season of Orange County beginning next month. And coming down the turnpike, Real Housewives of New Jersey. This is what's crazy too, is now we're beginning a time where Bravo is like, we're actually having to have these shows be like well positioned around each other. So it's constantly airing until now where we have like 5 or 6 airing at one time.
As someone who criticizes and blogs about the fashions on these shows, every single one, every single week, there was a point in like end of December where I was like, there are too many Housewives on right now.
Yeah, like
There are
Housewives
too
and like there's 7
many
spin-off shows.
fucking Housewives. There was Salt Lake City, Beverly Hills,
Potomac.
and Miami on
Yep.
all at the same time.
And then you have like the Southern Hospitality and the like Summer House or Winter House at this point.
I couldn't
Too
handle
much.
it.
Back to the article. Andy Cohen, Bravo's Senior Vice President of Programming and Development, said the franchise has successfully wooed viewers and would otherwise balk at the over-the-top subjects. So, for example, Bethany Frankel, I love the way they describe her early on, the no-nonsense businesswoman of Real Housewives of New York City, said the entertainment value of the Atlanta spinoff has raised the game for other shows. So Bethany said at the time, in this economy right now, because against recession, it is the show of conspicuous consumption. I felt like I was in an episode of Cribs meets Jerry Springer. Well, that's very loaded, Bethany. I like that they're unapologetic. I think it's going to be wildly entertaining. After watching this, if we're going to keep up our ratings, I'm going to stand outside one of my castmates' house and wait for them and slap somebody just because those women bring it to another level. Some other standout moments. This is my favorite because anyone who's ever started Atlanta from the beginning, if you text them or like have them on a group chat, they will text you about this exact moment that this article The other standout moments, Kim Zolciak, the lone white woman on The Atlanta Show, coaxes her secret sugar daddy to buy a new SUV for her. She later changes her outfit in a gas station parking lot as Leaks and a stylist try to form a protective wall. And then later, as you see that scene where she's doing, what was it, where she's selling a bunch of stuff from her house and she's like smoking a cigarette, drinking wine in that SUV.
I know.
On camera. It's
so
it's unhinged.
unreal. It's unreal.
Frankel, who knew only Zarin before being the cast in the show, say they represent, quote, an older Sex and the City married life. Frankel, 37 and single, called herself the poor one. She said that part of the show's appeal was its ability to polarize. She says, quote, some people are angry because they say this is really not New York. And of course, it's not entirely New York. There are people at poetry readings in the Village and people doing drugs in Washington Square Park, which has nothing to do with our lives, but it's just a slice of New York, and the truth is stranger than fiction. Love that.
Love. I mean, not love Bethany. Wait, actually,
but she's right.
Can just to check in on our girl Beth. Can we insert video, please, here of Bethany Frankel? Please,
the one
can
I
we
sent
insert
you?
that? Yeah, can we insert it here? I'm gonna just play it for us again so we can relive the moment. But why don't you insert that audio here?
Okay, let's do drugs. Want to see my kitchen? The locusts are coming next, and the peacock plane. Help me! I killed someone. My dogs get hemorrhoid. Where are we? I'm in TJ Maxx. Don't get crazy. Because flamingos are real. Don't get crazy. 1 corn, 2 corn, 1 potato, 2 potato, 3 potato, 4. Oh, my life is coming to an end. Flamingos have feelings too. Insomnia cookies. So if you want to commit a murder, is my flamingo real? Living inside your own head. This is my friends. Everybody was doing drugs. What the fuck is going on? I'm doing what I want. She wasn't wearing a diaper. Dungeness sick. Hemorrhoidal issues. What the fuck? Met a woman who rescues rabbits.
The locusts.
The way that's only from like 2 years of TikTok videos. She's lost it.
This is what's happened to Bethany Frankel just because of what happened to her on Bravo.
The other side of it all.
The locusts. I just love the way she says the locusts.
I killed a man. Meanwhile, she's like eating
video.
shellfish, and like half those clips are like shoving a bunch of salad in her mouth. It's amazing.
Did you also see that video I sent you of Sonia Morgan? That video made me
cry,
like, literally start
sob.
crying. Literally, Matt, I'm not kidding you. I got like actually really sad about it.
I
was
know.
like,
I miss her so much, and I miss like when she was better. I don't like to say it.
Remember how she was like maybe the most beautiful woman that has ever been alive? I think about her all the time. Oh my God, I'm literally going to start crying. Okay, so we also have, going off of that as well, this huge profile in 2008 of from the New York Times, courtesy of Lauren Zalaznick, which is like one of the most crazy time capsules I think we've ever read. Because this is the sort of thing that
print
just
this
gets
and like
lost.
put it in my filing cabinet, like it, like so nobody forgets, because it is like 10,000 words that are so prescient to where
this
we
is
are
like
today.
a journal entry you find in an open world game where there's like a data shard on the counter and
it
you're
explains
like
everything.
You're like rifling around and it's like a lore entry, and after reading it your character's like, wow, the 21st century sure sounded crazy. No wonder they blew themselves up. Like,
you're like, they knew the whole time. Like, that's what it feels reading this.
You're
piece.
like hacking into an old computer terminal in like a worn down car park, bus station, gas station, whatever, what have you. And it's like in a random email, like, check out this link. And then there's like 47 raiders outside on motorcycles looking for water, and you, I don't know, blow them all up with sci-fi magic. And you're like, 5 out of 5 stars, PlayStation 5 game of the year. Okay, let's keep going.
Okay. So again, this is a massive piece. I think it's legitimately like 10,000 plus words. So we're going to condense, go through a bit quicker. So we don't have to like bore you guys. But there's a lot of really interesting stuff. I mean, early on, it's a lot about Lauren Zalaznick, again, the executive at NBC Universal, who manages Bravo Media and other cable verticals within NBC's lineup. She talks about Top Chef a lot in the beginning because, again, Top Chef really is like that juggernaut that gets the network really going and gets a lot of viewers and a lot of attention. by other people in the industry. I mean, she has a quote here that's so insane already, where she talks about one of the contestants that was being considered for Top Chef has a seafood allergy. And she says to the New York Times writer, "That's funny." And gives a, quote, purely professional assessment. "Let's give him a seafood challenge." Like, she's that person who, like, immediately sees where we can create conflict and drama within a TV show based off the cast. And she has a lot to say kind of about that. So kind of skipping forward, the whole thing about this article is about the affluencer, which is a term that we'll kind of define here, where going into the article, a certain kind of advertiser, naturally likes shows about high-end tastes and consumption. Zelaznik's real feat has been making sure the high-end viewers like the shows too. Among women ages 18 to 49, Bravo is the fastest growing of the top 20 entertainment cable networks, and its viewers are the most educated and upscale. This is so fascinating to me. Quote, "About a quarter of them make more than $100,000 a year, a demographic that advertisers are desperately trying to reach." Berwick, the general manager, came up with a catchy name for this premium demographic, the Affluencers. The network even created for advertisers a one-off magazine called Bravo Affluencer, which depicted on its cover two quintessential affluent influencers, an attractive man and women, both in their late 20s, shopping bags, and this is for its time, PDAs in hand, passports visible in pockets, dressed casually but stylishly, looking savvy, plugged in, and on top of it. The two could easily be sitcom characters, Will and Grace. In fact, Bravo executives actually use the phrase Will and Grace to describe this subset of their viewers, urban gay men and single female professionals, two categories of viewers particularly drawn to shows like Project Runway and Top Chef. Now, like, generally speaking, many of you probably already know that marketers and agencies of the like literally do create characters. They give them names, they give them backstories, they take photos of actual either models or people that they want to like basically design their marketing material around. They give them storylines, they give them aesthetics, they basically fill out almost everything about them as if they were a real person. That's nothing new here, but early on, Bravo immediately, with Zelaznik specifically, really honed in on that Will and Grace archetype, and basically from their design an entire media landscape that's going to cater to them. And these people, like they said, which kills me because it's so not what everyone likes to stereotype these reality shows, the viewers of them as, the most educated and upscale. Like, these are people who are legitimately postgraduate, like make $100,000 a year, work in advertising, they work in like high-end creative firms, they are making a lot of money, and they are influencers and like the actual real sense before influencers became a nothing term. So Bravo knew this.
No,
they went
I love
right
this.
into it.
I love this because it also really does show like what we have always said about this network was that like this network has always been targeting a very specific demo. And listen, I'm not saying that a lot of different kinds of people watch Bravo. A lot of different kinds of people watch Bravo. Poor people, rich people, broke people, college kids, teenagers, old people, married people, gay people, trans people. Everyone watches Bravo. Wow, we should turn that into an audio clip. But their vibes back in the day, and like really what they were shooting for was like, back when I worked at Trader Joe's, there was this like well-known, not even conspiracy, it was well known that the company that owned Trader Joe's would only open Trader Joe's in places with high concentrations of people with graduate degrees, basically. Like that they were like, oh, if the neighborhood doesn't have enough like graduate degrees, then we are not going to, or graduate or undergraduate degrees, then we're not going to open up a neighborhood thing there, right? Because they were trying to target like a sort of like middle class aspirational, like, you know, you're young in the city, you work like a marketing job, or you're in tech or finance. Like they were not originally trying to be the brand most loved by like broke college kids. Like they were trying to go for
being
like
more affordable and more like organic, you know, and such. But like it doesn't matter necessarily who they actually can cater to. It's who they want to cater to keep the brand image alive.
Yeah. Like, I do think that, like, it was like, again, Bravo was trying to get at people, and it was very clear, and it's interesting to have that confirmed. Like, a sort of, like, wealthy, coastal elite dilettante type
Basically.
that like was really both the peers of the people on its shows, and if not the peers, then the sort of people that like worked adjacent to these industries, right? Like people in furniture, design, fashion,
Exactly.
marketing, finance, like these sorts of people where they could see this and be like, oh, ha ha ha, I also have been to X bar in X place, or like, oh, I was just at the Regis or whatever the fuck, and like I saw them there, right? Like that's who they were targeting. Bravo was not trying to be aspirational content. It was not
absolutely
trying
not.
to be like, oh, like you could work hard and get rich like these people. And it's funny that that has really been one of the takeaways and really how the network has changed because of BravoCon. Like under the later guidance of the people at Bravo, you can see how Lauren Zalaznik's original ethos has really kind of gone by the wayside, but it was not always.
It's still part
by
of the core,
wayside.
but it has been skewing away. So there's a really funny story in this article of an interaction between Andy that he recalls to the New York Times with Zalaznik.
She literally said, "Hey, faggot," to Andy. It's the greatest story I've ever read in my life.
It's pretty iconic. So Andy recalls it was horrible. The confrontation happened at a downtown Manhattan restaurant, Pastis, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, at a breakfast meeting during which Cohen made a passing reference to an exercise mixtape that he made for himself. He had called it Fit and 40. He says, quote, "It was all new Mariah, new Madonna." As Cohen and Zalaznik ate their breakfast, discussing various other work projects, Zalaznik's mind was still on the questionable-sounding mixtape. And there were, to Zalaznik's mind, a few other false notes that Cohen struck over the course of the conversation. Suddenly, Zalaznik let him have it. She says, quote, "Just so you know, you have become that person who thinks he knows what is going on in the universe, but you really don't. You're
you
really
really
out
don't.
of it. You don't have the same reference points as everyone," Cohen recalled. Which is like being read down like that by your...
I love someone saying
by, like-
you don't have the same reference points as everyone. Like,
if I was read down like that by like a executive at NBC who I'm working directly under and hope to do many more projects with, I think I would collapse on the spot. This was a style intervention. I don't intervene, Zalaznik explained. It was a refocusing, which again, I'm obsessed with the corporate jargon of it all. Confronting her now in her office, Cohen wanted his boss to know that he'd done a self-evaluation in the weeks since her critique. He decided that she had been all wrong. He said to her, quote, "I don't find myself to be out of it. I'm all good with myself." In response to this, Zalaznik said, "Big time, and you're ultra fit." If Zalaznik came down hard on Cohen, it's because she relies heavily on employees like him, trendy, about town, to help her figure out the precise moment when, say, Bushwick, not Williamsburg, becomes the place where hipsters in Brooklyn live, when people under 30 start watching your shows more on webcasts than on television, when a word like fierce is so tired it's officially over, and when it has been safely resurrected as mainstream camp. I mean...
yeah.
Finger on the pulse. That's all. Like, that's of course exactly what she relies on Andy for, and what he has, I mean, delivered, and maybe not so much delivering nowadays. But unlike most NBC executives, Zalaznik didn't work her way up through the ranks. Now, this is what's really fascinating about her, and I think truly colors everything and confirms also everything we've ever said about reality TV up until this point. So she didn't go to business school. She was an undergraduate at Brown, and she majored in semiotics, which is basically
I love
what the semiotics of it all.
like she literally, I can't stress enough, you guys, she came into this was like, we are producing high concept art house cinema. Like that is what the Real Housewives is. Like, and you can sort of, and I hate to say, but you can sort of see it in those early seasons. Like they really are trying to strive at something like real and
they're confronting
gorgeous
like
and
American
sad
dreams
and haunting.
Yeah, and like the cultural clash.
It's changed a lot, but like those early seasons, you're like, this. I'm sorry, the first season of The Real Housewives of Orange County, the first season, or not even that, the first seasons of like New York, New Jersey, and Beverly Hills, Atlanta specifically. That's like high art. That is, I'm sorry, that's Criterion Collection.
It really is
cinema. Yeah.
So semiotics, by the way, is literally the study of symbols in imagery.
Yes,
like,
no, that's what I'm
like
saying.
She's legitimately coming from like art theory down. So after graduating college, she worked for a few years doing production work on big budget films, but by her mid-20s, she apparently turned into independent film. The leap from producing independent films to producing Tabitha's Salon Takeover, which got so iconic. I need to rewatch that. That show is so good. I wish they would bring it back. I'm so mad that they brought it back for that hot minute in like 2016. They need to bring it back again. She says, so they said, to some, this may look like a fall from going from independent films to Tabitha's Salon Takeover. To Zlaznik, though, independent film and cable television present essentially the same challenges and require the same sort of executive resourcefulness. She says, quote, I've got no budget, no stars, but I've got to win. Zlaznik,
She's so like, she's so
right.
Shiv. She's so Shiv Roy coded. Like,
we're gonna make it work.
what is she
Zlaznik-
doing now? I've only like seen the old
she
stuff.
left in 2013 and now she's just been like board hopping. I think she's just like probably a billionaire now.
Yeah.
So this is the part that made me actually scream completely, guys. Like,
Oh, now she's at the
Brace
Boston
yourself.
Consulting Group.
I'm sure they create war crimes.
Sorry, Boston in the title. You're doing
It's
war
over.
crimes.
So this is what made me scream. Zlaznik
She was
still
also
sounds
the
more like
director of GoPro for 7 years.
That's a weird one.
That is a weird one.
I bet she's
She's
paid.
probably like, okay, wait, I'm looking at Boston Consulting Group. Sorry, keep going.
Zlaznik still sounds more like a semiotics major than the typical corporate cheerleader. To her, what she's producing isn't rampant consumerism on display to be emulated or mocked, or both. It's a form of social anthropology, a cultural text as worthy of analysis as any other art form and suitable for her intellect. What have we been saying for so many years on this show? That the Housewives, Bravo, good reality TV, not all, but good reality TV is social anthropology. That's legitimately where she comes from, where Bravo Media itself comes from when it creates these productions, when it creates these shows. So it's just so funny to see in 2008, we're literally writing about that like word for word. So social anthropology, and people still to this day cannot possibly even imagine that's the level we're operating at. Okay, wait, did you just find something shocking? You're giving me a sudden reaction on this call?
No, Matt. She is literally doing war crimes.
No, don't tell me Don't tell me a certain
No,
self-proclaimed
no.
state is involved here.
Okay. Okay. This is from the Boston Consulting Group controversy section on Wikipedia.
Oh, and you got a controversy section.
So
Mama.
we have Angola first up.
Oh.
An article published by the New York Times on January 19th, 2020 identified BCG as having worked with Isabel dos Santos, who exploited Angola's natural resources while the country suffered from poverty, illiteracy, and infant mortality. According to the article, BCG was contracted by the Angolan state-owned petroleum company Sonangol, as well as the jewelry company De Grizogano, owned by her husband through shell companies in Luxembourg, Malta, and the Netherlands. The form was reportedly paid through offshore companies in tax havens such as Malta. We also have the Saudi Arabia section. The New York Times also reported that Boston Consulting Group is one of the consulting firms, along with McKinsey and Booz Allen, helping Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman consolidate power in Saudi Arabia. While a BCG spokesperson said the firm turns down projects involving military and intelligence strategy, BCG is involved in designing the economic blueprint for the country, a plan called Vision 2030. They were also hired to examine the feasibility for the country to host the 2030 FIFA World Cup. The bid was assessed to be a great deal, as FIFA's policy on continental rotation blocked all of the Asian Football Confederation nations from hosting the World Cup until 2034, after Qatar was set to become the first Middle East nation to host the tournament in 2022.
Wow, this is horrible. I knew it. I'm sorry. Consulting group for like Boston Consulting Group, like you are only making the world worse. You are accelerating climate change and or human rights violations.
Wait.
Stop. No, Joan, what? No.
Stop. I looked at the notable Boston Consulting Group employees.
Okay, Joan's giving me like 7 face journeys per minute right now. I can't.
I forgot about this. I was like, they sound so familiar. Do you know why they sound so familiar?
No.
After graduating from MIT, Benjamin Netanyahu became an economic consultant for the Boston Consulting Group.
I knew Israel was involved. I knew it. I knew this had to do with Zionism. There's no other way it can go. There's no other way.
Wow.
When in doubt.
Wow.
I want to kill myself. I hate this. I hate this so much.
Wow.
Are you serious?
Yeah, he worked there from 1976 to 1978 at the Boston Consulting Group. He was a colleague of Mitt Romney, with whom he formed a lasting friendship. Romney described Netanyahu during this time as, quote, a strong personality with a distinct point of view, and said, quote, we can almost speak in shorthand. We share common experiences and have a perspective and underpinning which is similar. Netanyahu said that their easy communication was a result of BCG's intellectually rigorous boot camp.
The fact that we are somehow...
And guess where he went directly?
I cannot believe we're here.
Directly back to Israel from the Boston Consulting Group.
The fact that we brought it to a place of
Israel. I know. Wow, I'm sorry, guys. I totally did not mean to derail us in the middle of your conversation, but I was like, Boston Consulting Group, Boston Consulting Group, Boston Consulting Group. That just seems really familiar.
I knew it. I just knew it couldn't be good, and I think I just didn't want to know
the way that it's so we have Mitt Romney. We have Mitt Romney, Benjamin Netanyahu, and Lauren Zelaznik as the notable alumni of the Boston Consulting Group. Oof. Okay, keep going.
Well, now it feels like taking it from a place of social anthropology maybe doesn't lead to the best destination.
Yeah, no.
All right, now that I'm done with making the most iconic reality TV show programming of all time, let me go help war crimes be done faster. We funneled more billionaire money into killing people.
Going from Bravo to the war crimes factory does make total sense, because this is a person who, as we read earlier in this article, she read that one of the contestants has a seafood allergy, and her response to that is, haha, let's do a seafood challenge.
I'm sorry, the Angola of it all as well, and the diamond mine.
I was like, I actually can't handle any of this.
Okay, let's, as her words, let's refocus.
Let's
Let's bring it back to 2008 before all of that happened. Okay, so again, this article
we're the only podcast that would ever connect Lauren Zelaznik with Israel. Sorry.
Bravo and Israel aren't as far as you would think.
Well, let's get a peek at Andy Cohen's private group chats. How about that? Let's keep going. Sorry,
wasn't Michael Rappaport
derailing
just on Watch Happens Live?
I'm derailing us. Let's keep going.
Okay, so again, this article is very lengthy, but I want to end it here. So there's a lot of things about product integration, and that's a big thing that Zelaznik and Bravo really focused in on, the origins of like BravoTV.com, letting viewers shop the look, having Project Runway contestants, go through like a Levi's store or like a Hershey's store during episodes. So not only was it like, we're going to do reality TV and have it be this like introspective analysis of the people and the cultures and the society that they're living in, but we're also going to make sure that they're well integrated with all the products that NBC Universal and its affiliate partners can be, basically synergize. So she says, we know for a fact Bravo is the most engaged network. The most people who see a commercial on Bravo out of any other network remember that ad and think more highly of its product. So think about that statistics. That statistic is true. 63% of Bravo's viewers recall the name of brands they've seen advertised on Bravo, and 26% say that after seeing a product placement on Bravo, they have an improved opinion of that product. So you can see this immediately happen with really most of the programming at the time, but especially up to now, we now have Amazon being basically an official partner of Bravo, and bringing up Amazon Live, bringing up Amazon products on the show is nothing new when it comes to Bravo's general integration with NBC Universal and their like larger brand conglomerates. And it's a huge reason why Bravo, with its fan base being so attached to the products or so attached to the people, are more likely to actually spend their money. So out of the grand scheme of things, even if you're not going to get a lot of viewers, we've always said this on the show, engaged viewers, engaged listeners are going to do a lot more work than getting millions of people to watch, but they don't do anything really after watching. So she also says, as we kind of talked about earlier, the wealthy characters in the show will probably be a little less wealthy as the recession goes on, but they won't be moving in with their parents, and they might not even curb their spending. Bailey said to the New York Times to try to pitch a show to another network about people getting their debt under control and learning to live within their means, but nobody would watch it. Now, he and Barbado are talking to Bravo about a new show, one where that could be set in Dubai. Quote, the new frontier, the new location of the American dream, where there's no income tax and people go to reinvent themselves. Now, I couldn't find anything actually happening with Dubai.
It didn't.
On Bravo. Nothing ever happened. The earliest instance that we obviously have now at this point, I mean, the Housewives have gone to Dubai on various programs, but is the now Real Housewives of Dubai, which almost word for word has really the exact same language we see here. That's immediately when the Real Housewives of Dubai starts. They're like, it's the new American dream. It's where the world goes. You know, you can do anything here. And, you know,
God,
it's like
is
feminism.
that show ever going to come back?
I know. I'm like, I want to see the season 2. I actually like season 1. Propaganda
I did
and
not
all.
like season 1s, but
I mean, it was
I
bad,
understand.
but like binging it quickly in the background, you're like, okay. I just think
So
the
we're-
propaganda is very interesting. That's all I can say.
So we're going to finish now with 2 pieces of news. Well, one is a piece of criticism and one is a piece of news. Now, this is from an LA Times article. I want to give a shout out to the writer of this LA Times article. So give me a second while the archive pulls this up, because the web archive sometimes gets a little bit crazy, which, once again, for those of you who are new to this series or maybe just jumping on for Vanderpump Rules, you can always find all of the links here on our links page, as well as on our website. For series like this, we just have like big landing pages full of all the links that we're using. So the article writer of this is Mary McNamara, who, if Mary McNamara is a problematic person, I'm just saying that this was a funny piece of writing. I am not personally endorsing Mary McNamara personally. Quote, "This is decay at play in the OC." And this is a piece of criticism about the Real Housewives that Mary writes, and is one of the earlier pieces of like sort of like television criticism, like actual criticism that I can read that is still sort of like easily accessible to me. Mm-hmm. 4 women sit at a table attempting to counsel a 5th. The youngest of the group has brought up that while her much older and wealthy fiance, is dying of cancer, he is languishing in the hospital as they speak, and she has been his primary caretaker for the last 2 years. She does not know if she is a beneficiary of either his will or his insurance policy. What should she do? In the hands of a novelist or playwright, this would be one of those moments in which the small tap of a simple question shatters the brittle facade of social convention and reveals the true nature of things. Marriage or money, the bitter complications of love, or the irreducible chasm between expectation and reality. Instead, the conversation quickly devolves into a petty power play, suffocated by a narcissism so dense you would think it was made of Spanx. Vicky Gunvalson, Gina Keogh, and Tamara Barney all advise Gretchen Rossi to get on that beneficiary list before it's too late, because that's what they'd do. When Lynn Curtin agrees, Vicky accuses her of being rude and confrontational and flounces off. So it's true then. John Updike is dead, and we are left with the Real Housewives of Orange County. In the end, the big reveal of the Real Housewives, and this is a little later in the piece, is that there is no big reveal beyond the news flash that money does not make you happy or nice or even very interesting. This is 2009. There is no poetry in the suburbs, no art to be gleaned from the battle between society and the individual. Society won, pal, and what's wrong with that? No one in these suburbs is secretly yearning to live in Paris or be a painter, and if there is any self-doubt, it's buried under the silt of professionally prescribed pharmaceuticals and the belief that looking straight at the camera makes you seem more serious. Hedda Gabler left these buildings years ago. These heroines are tragic only in their lack of consciousness. I was reading this and I was like, whoa. But it's funny here that there is no big reveal because, you know, really the piece is really kind of dealing with like this mundanity and social decay that's on display. And like, you know, there is no deeper truth to be gleaned. The truth is that there is no more truth. There is no more beauty or art to be found in America's suburbs. All there is to be found is the want for society itself. And I think that that's fascinating, but it has changed so much now because of these later entries in these shows, I think, as well. But of its time, there is like an element of truth here that still rings. And Mary ends the piece with saying, quote, "It's hard not to worry, just a little, that given the tanking economy, the wives and their gated communities may soon be stormed by disgruntled OC peasants bearing pitchforks and tiki torches. But even if the Real Housewives does make it through the lean times, these women will no doubt remain white where we all want them to be, trapped in the fabulous shabbiness of their lives, having conversations that run back and forth like trained rats along dim and narrow mazes of the mundane, which is precisely why we will always need our poets. Now, more than ever, no one more so than those housewives down in the Orange County.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
Oh my God. Like literally, I was shaken by this. I was like, wow.
I'm
but
not
I do
gonna
like
lie,
that
the 2008, 2009, like we were cooking. Like
in 15 years ago, quote, if the Real Housewives makes it through the lean times, these women will no doubt remain right where we all want them to be, trapped in the fabulous shabbiness of their lives, having conversations that run back and forth like trained rats along dim and narrow mazes of the mundane.
that's Lily BravoCon.
I was like,
That's literally BravoCon.
I was like, oh my God, that is such a chic thing to say. Love that. Go off.
That's National Archive.
I love. So in July 2009, Real Housewives of Orange County premieres Real Housewives of New Jersey, premieres. And later that year, we get a press release announcing that Andy Cohen is going to become the first ever openly gay late night host. And that, my friends, is where we are going to end today.
Ooh, spooky.
Watch what happens live. Watch what happens live.
He's also it's also one of the only live late night talk shows at this point too, which is crazy to imagine.
I know.
Yeah.
Wow.
Wow.
Well, thank you all for tuning in to yet another episode of Vanderpump Rules. This has been episode 2, I believe. 3.
Mama.
This
Well,
is episode
depends
3.
where you start.
Yeah. This is episode 3, and we already have episode 4 coming down the turnpike. We also have episode 5 basically written at this point. I mean, we are cooking. We are chugging along. And I think that having worked on a couple other series now at this point, we've kind of got this down to a science. I mean, honestly, behind the scenes, it feels a lot less chaotic now. I'm like, wow, this is
the fact
so
that we have them
much
already
easier
written
than
out,
it was.
pretty great.
Yeah. Well, before, we were kind of going into uncharted territory, especially with Ariana Grande, which was our biggest series to date ever at that point.
No, the Jonas Brothers, mama. Hello.
Well, no, but Ariana came first, and we were like,
Oh, true.
we really were like not sure, like
Where we
how
go.
long that was going to be, where it was going to go, how to write it, how to structure that sort of thing. And then Jonas Brothers, we kind of learned a lot of lessons from Ariana, and now this time I'm like, girl,
We got it.
why was I ever worried about this? This shit's fun as fuck.
Also,
And I'm
talk about
loving
something we
this
know
one.
down. Like,
Oh, I know. I feel like this is going to become our entire year at this point, is like how much I want to keep talking about this. But
I know we could.
I digress. I just fucking love this series. This series has been so much fun, and I can't wait to do next week. I've got nothing really to promo. Happy Valentine's Day to everyone who celebrated last night. When you're hearing this, it'll be last night. I will have taken myself to see the Young Girls of Rochefort by myself.
Yeah.
I invited people, and everyone was busy or like not wanting to leave the house or whatever. And rather than do what I did last year, which was like be sad and like alone on Valentine's Day, I'm taking myself out, and I'm going to get myself a nice dinner. I think my roommate's like doing something with their partner. So I was like, well, I'm going to make myself scarce, and I'm going to go to see a movie that I love at the Philly Film Society. So I'm excited about that. What are you doing? Are you doing anything?
That. Yeah. I mean, there's a strike right now with like door deliveries and Lyft and stuff. So we're just going to make dinner in, honestly, at this point. Why
Nice.
not? Yeah.
Oh, is there a strike happening?
Yeah. It's kind of,
is it in the Bay Area?
But
wait.
yeah, I think it's nationwide. But I also have seen it be like just airports. But there was a general, I think, strike for Valentine's Day specifically for a lot of like
okay, wow.
Lyft, Uber, delivery services. Yeah,
I have been in this.
it came quick and fast. I'll tell you that.
Yeah. Okay, I'm seeing it in the UK. Are you sure it's here as well?
I've just been seeing a lot of people talk about it, so maybe not 100%.
Yeah, no, that, I mean, honestly, shout out. Yeah, I'm mostly just seeing like UK outlets talking about it, so I didn't know if it was UK specific.
I mean, generally
or not,
speaking, though, I'm trying to really cut
I see
down
here,
those.
found it.
Yeah.
CNN reports Uber, Lyft, and delivery workers in US and UK plan Valentine's Day strike.
That's my thought.
Yeah, so support the striking workers, guys. Like, don't fucking order this week or whatever. I have also been really like
trying to
sort
cut
of
down
like
that.
anti-cutting down on all, not anti-cutting down on all that, but like anti-delivery stuff.
Yeah,
I,
same. I've been trying
just
to heavily reduce it.
I've just been forcing myself to go get takeout, which I mean, obviously always requires a walk for me, but I'm like, if I don't want the food that bad enough to walk for it, then I don't really want
Well,
the
here's a
food.
good incentive for everybody. It is always cheaper to go in person and order.
Yeah,
Call and do
always.
it. You will save
Oh my God.
a lot of money sometimes, actually.
And I found they just
And
opened,
they get
I mean,
more money. So everybody wins.
They took over a Chinese food spot that used to be in our neighborhood called Spice Garden, and it is now something else, but it is still like a Chinese food spot. And honestly, Matt, I have to say, like, I found a very good replacement for that place that we love in fucking, oh God, what's that shit called?
I don't know the neighborhoods.
No. This, remember we order there's that Chinese food place that we loved.
Oh, Yang Chow or
I think it's Ying Chow.
Mm-hmm.
But anyways, like I just hadn't found one that sort of like compared, you know, it just like wasn't the same.
Yeah.
And this one that I went to, I was like, oh my God, yeah, I'm
like,
gonna
this is
definitely
it.
Devour the fuck out of this
This is
shit.
it.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
anyways, I'm excited about that. Maybe I'll head there after I see the movie. I don't know. Everything is like Valentine's Day plans. I always hate that when restaurants are like, you can only eat here if you order our like $75 Valentine's Day package. It's like,
I was
no.
looking at restaurants and I was just like, no, I don't care. It's weird.
Love and light, no.
I don't understand.
So
also, like, I don't know. Going out can be sexy, but like special food orders, I'm just like, it's just not like ringing like romance to me per se.
No.
We can do other things.
Thank you for listening to this, everybody. Don't forget to go to Patreon. We have been recapping the entire season of Vanderpump Rules over there. It's been really fun. The girls are eating up our recaps, so that's a nice thing. And we obviously have been talking a lot about just other stuff going on in our lives. Because we've been recapping, we've sort of been focusing less on hot topics and more just sort of like chit-chatting and then recapping. So it's a really fun vibe over there right now.
Is pretty rough. So like, let's talk about something more fun.
We don't want to talk about sports or the awards, you know, like that's not really our vibe anymore. So go over to Patreon. We have a bunch of tiers available at different prices depending on how much you want to give. And we just got some fun stuff cooking. I'm really excited to keep doing this series, and we'll see you all next week.
Yes.
Want to get out of here?
Let's get out of here.
3, 2, 1. You know that it's our time. These are the best days of our lives. So just raise your glasses high. This one's for you tonight. You've been listening to Eating for Free, a podcast created, co-hosted, written, researched, and produced by myself, Joan Summers, and Matthew Lawson, with original theme music by Sam Huntington of Crooks and Nannies. If you liked what you heard today, you can go to patreon.com/eatingforfree to get access to weekly bonus episodes, as well as access to my other podcast, Beautiful Women Updates, hosted by myself and Alex V. Green. You can also go to eatingforfree.com to get access to the links to our research from today's episode, as well as merch and so much more.